Hello, hello. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Jenny, and this is a place where I like to talk about all things murdery. So what I'd like to do today is talk about Agatha Christie's Death on the Nile and how does the book compare to the movie. For clarity's sake, I'm talking about the recent movie, the one that came out in 2022. I think there was a 1970s adaptation of this book as well, but I haven't seen it, so I can't compare to that. So we'll be talking book versus 2022 movie. So earlier this year, I was hearing all of this hype and kept seeing advertisements and trailers for the movie. The trailers looked good to me. It was starring some actors that I really like, such as Gal Gadot as Lynette Ridgway and Kenneth Branagh. I don't know if I'm saying his name right, but we're going to go with Kenneth Branagh as Detective Hercule Poirot. I have no accent. I don't know how. I've heard him say it a whole bunch of times in the movie. Poirot. Sure. So being stubborn about this kind of thing, though, I thought I want to read this book before I see this movie so that I can adequately compare. And if you are a bookish individual, such as myself, you know that what that really means is that I want to read the book so that when I watch the movie, I can see all of the things that they got wrong. It's, drives my partner insane because I will be sitting in a movie going, ugh. And he's like, please stop. So I try not to do that when I'm with him. But anyway, so I also thought this is a good opportunity for me to read an Agatha Christie novel. Somehow I never had. And lo and behold, when I got this book and was reading a little bit about Agatha Christie on the back of it, I learned that she is the essentially third most published author of all time. She is behind only the Bible and William Shakespeare in units sold. And to be fair, the Bible and William Shakespeare got one heck of a jump start on her. So this book was originally released in 1937, and it is set in that time period. So this is a book that continues the adventures of Detective Hercule Poirot. I promise I'm not going to say his name the whole way through. So Poirot is a Sherlock Holmes-esque type detective. He's deductive, observant, brilliant. Anything that you wouldn't normally see, he's going to catch all of the clues and reason through them to figure out who done it. So again, I learned this from reading the back of this book. This is one of 37 novels that Christie wrote with Poirot as the protagonist. I do feel based on this one novel, having not read the other 36, that Poirot, if you're going to compare him to Sherlock Holmes, or if I'm going to compare him to Sherlock Holmes, could have benefited from a Dr. Watson. I've always felt like Dr. Watson gave Sherlock Holmes a lot of his humanity, and I think that Poirot could have benefited from somebody humanizing him a little bit. I do think that they tried to do that in the movie by kind of sharing his backstory a lot, but he still kind of came across pretty arrogant. So Death on the Nile follows the story of wealthy British socialite Lynette Ridgway. So bear in mind that this is set in 1937, and this was Depression era. So although this is set in, although Lynette is British, the Great Depression was not restricted only to the United States. The whole world really felt it to some degree or another. So to say that Lynette was wealthy, she was wealthy in a time where nobody was wealthy, where people had been hit really hard by the economy. So to describe her as wealthy means a lot more at this time. So she is described as having it all, everything except love. Love has evaded her. So enter Lynette's best friend, Jacqueline. Jacqueline definitely does not come with Lynette's good fortune. She is kind of a, just a happy-go-lucky girl. But she does have something that Lynette does not, and that is a very handsome, fiance named Simon Doyle. Simon doesn't seem to be known for his wit or skills or intelligence, or wealth for that matter. He's good looking and charming. That is his claim to fame. So fast forward a little bit. I'm going to give you a synopsis, but I'm not going to give anything you can't really read on the back of the book here. So fast forward, and now we are on Lynette's honeymoon trip to Egypt. Aha, but who is Lynette's new husband, you ask? Well, it is none other than Jacqueline's fiance, who has left her for Lynette. Yes, Lynette marries Simon Doyle, and it is safe to say that Jacqueline is no longer Lynette's best friend. So she calls it love, you know, marrying for love. I call it shysty. Hey, come on, this is your best friend. So at this point, all is smelling like roses for Lynette. She's got the love of her life. She still has all her money. She's on her honeymoon trip in Egypt. Everything is going well. But Jacqueline is not prepared to let things go. She's not prepared to just bow out gracefully. So what does she do? Everywhere they go, everywhere Lynette and Simon go in Egypt, Jacqueline keeps turning up. She doesn't do anything, but she lets them know that she's there. So she's just making a general nuisance of herself. Like they're out having a good old time, boom, Jacqueline. So she's definitely a bummer is what she is. So they decide that the best way to evade Jacqueline is to book this impromptu riverboat trip up the Nile. You can kind of guess where this is probably going. Because after all, how can Jacqueline follow them onto this riverboat trip that she didn't know that they were taking? So, but alas, it doesn't work, and Jacqueline does in fact show up on the boat. So I do want to keep this as spoiler-free as possible. However, what I'm about to tell you is literally right here on the back of the book. So a few days into their beautiful trip on the Nile, what happens? Beautiful Lynette Ridgway Doyle is murdered. Dun, dun, dun. But who did it? That's what the book is about. Lynette is murdered like here, you know, this far into the book. And the rest of the book, it's about who done it. So the obvious conclusion would be Jacqueline did it, right? Jacqueline has an airtight alibi. But what about Simon Doyle, her new husband who doesn't have two brain cells to rub together? Also, airtight alibi. But fortunately, brilliant Detective Poirot is on the case. He also happens to be on this trip with them. So he is also there, though, along with a whole crowd of other people who all seem to have a reason to want Lynette dead. So that's as much synopsis as I can give you without telling you too much. All right, so what did I think of the book? What did I think of the movie? So here's what I really liked about the book. First of all, it's not too big of a monster. You can see some of the beasts I have behind me. This one, not too bad. Fairly light paperback. Pretty easy to get through. I'm pretty sure I read this in one day. Second, I was stymied. I didn't know who done it. There is nothing better than getting to the end of a mystery novel and having them tell you, and you didn't guess. You didn't put the clues together. But it wasn't so far-fetched that I was annoyed about it. So I have read some where, you know, the murderer was mentioned on page 2 in an offhanded comment, you know, somebody's cousin's best friend, and they're never mentioned again, and then boom, they're the murderer. How did you not figure that out? Like, oh, I didn't realize that was even a character. Like that was, you know, so stymied, but not so far-fetched that I didn't like it. So one thing I didn't care about in the book though, is that there are so many characters that it was a little bit hard to keep track of everyone. But maybe that's what helped me not guess who did it. So, you know, balance. So based on this one novel, I would for sure read another Agatha Christie book. I don't know if I'm going to read all 37 Hercule Poirot anytime soon, but I did like it. I would absolutely read another one of her books. So, the other thing I was going to mention is I really enjoy historical fiction. And although this book was written in 1937, so it wasn't historical fiction at the time, it certainly fits that bill now. So it's cool. It's definitely reminiscent of a time gone by. So how did that play out for us in movie form? So I will preface by saying that, like most book buffs, it's pretty unusual for me to tell you that I liked a movie as well, even much less better than a book. So I will try to be as fair about it as I can be. So I did go into this with fairly high expectations because the trailers looked really good and I was impressed by the cast. Lynette is played by Gal Gadot. Modern movie viewers will remember her as the big screen's Wonder Woman. She's also been in a ton of other things, but Wonder Woman is probably one of the things for which she is most or best well known. Sir Kenneth Branagh, yes, he is a sir, a real sir. I tend to think that not only is he a great actor, but he is a great director, and he directed the movie version as well. He's been in so many movies that it's kind of hard to pick just one to say like, oh yeah, that guy. But he was Gilderoy Lockhart in Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. For those of you who aren't as into Harry Potter as I am, you will remember him as the vain defense against the dark arts professor from book 2. He's the one that let the pixies go and then was like, you guys just figure that out. That was Kenneth Branagh. Excuse me. So in addition to that, to our headliners, other cast members include Annette Bening, Russell Brand, Rose Leslie, and Armie Hammer. So all in all, it was a pretty strong cast. And because of that, I had pretty high expectations. I will tell you too, I barely recognized Russell Brand. Like he plays the doctor, and it was his voice. That's the only reason I knew it was him. Whereas Annette Bening, she took on this hoity-toity rich lady voice, and her accent was, I don't know what she was going for other than hoity-toity rich lady. Ugh. It was hard to listen to her, and I like Annette Bening. So not a big fan of that one. So overall, I feel like I'd give the movie a 3. It wasn't terrible, certainly not unwatchable, but it was not great either. This wasn't going to be something that I would ever, like if they said, well, we're going to show it in the theater. No, I wouldn't make a special trip to go see it in the theater. It didn't have a lot of humor. It didn't have a lot of warm feelings. I didn't feel like I got too attached to any particular character. I felt like the intended star was Detective Poirot. And I felt like they really tried to build a lot of empathy for him. They showed, a lot of his experience during the war, and, he was horribly injured and all of these other things. You're just like supposed to feel bad for him, which, I do, but I don't know. I wasn't that attached. So the other Agatha Christie adaptation that I had previously seen was also a Kenneth Branagh version, and that was 2017's Murder on the Orient Express. So if you saw Murder on the Orient Express, it is a very similar concept to this. So Murder on the Orient Express takes place on a train. This takes place on a steamboat. But ultimately, so I never read Murder on the Orient Express, so I can't do the comparison. Maybe someday I will get around to that. But from the book perspective, but just movie to movie perspective, I feel like a lot of the issues I had with that movie, I also have issues with this movie. And a lot of it kind of boils down to that really large cast I was talking about before, where there are just so many players in the game that you don't really feel like you get to know anyone. You don't really get their backstories. You don't get attached to anybody. And it just feels a little convoluted. I feel like if I hadn't read the book, I would have really been confused in the movie. And although having that big cast of characters can kind of help keep things interesting, it all ended up feeling really rushed to me. Like it was like, boom, boom, boom. Why is this person angry? I don't know. And sometimes you wouldn't find out until like after the fact why they didn't like Lynette and all of that. And it's like, it was a little bit much. So yeah, all in all, the movie felt kind of rushed to me. I think they were going more for a vibe, more for an aesthetic than they were adhering to the storyline. I mean, they kept more or less to the storyline, but they lost, you know, you lose a lot of the detail in the book, from the book to the movie. So that, you know, that wasn't my favorite part. You know, all in all, so my verdict, just read the book. I think you'll enjoy it more. But if you don't want to take the time to read the book, or you're not a big reader, then the movie is currently streaming on Hulu as of October of 2022. So if you're watching this sometime in the future, I don't know, but it's right now, it's on Hulu. So there you go. Death on the Nile, Agatha Christie. So let me know in the comments what you think. Did you watch the movie? Did you read the book? Have you done both? What did you think? I'd love to get your perspective. So as always, please like and subscribe. It really helps me a lot if you do. And as always, have fun, be safe, and don't murder anyone. All right, bye.